John chapter 20. John chapter 20, 24 through 29. We are standing in his presence on holy ground. We are standing in his presence on holy ground. John chapter 20, 24 through 29. Wow. 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 Just the privilege of knowing I'm allowed to stand in his presence. Wow. 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 Is anybody glad to be in his presence? Does it does his presence do something to you? Wow. Ever been to a place where when you understand you're in his presence, you can't do what you were doing? Because Paul said, when I think about his presence, I think about the very idea that it was through his crucifixion that his presence became permanent in my life. Have you ever been to the place where even when you wanted to be bad, you remembered the nails in his hands? You remembered he was watching. When you wanted to do wrong, you remembered the spear in his feet, and you remembered he was watching. When you wanted to give up, you remember he hung in there to even the last breath, and you remember because he died, his presence now is permanent in my life. And I can't help, y'all forgive me, but I can't help but to lift my hands when I think about I'm in his presence. I can't help but to raise my hand when I think about how last night he kept me. Somebody else didn't make it. I don't know about you, but when I think about how I'm in his presence, God, right now, just God, I would ask that you would speak a word, God. If I might be selfish, God, I need a word. And I'm sure there are others here, God, who need to hear from you, God. But allow me this place of selfishness to say, God, I need to hear from you. Thank you for the blessing of being in your presence. It's when I acknowledge I'm in your presence, God, That's when I really find the peace that passes even my craziest misunderstandings, God. When I'm in your presence, God, that's when I realize I have an incomparable love, God, in your presence. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for this word, God. Preach like only you can. In Christ's name, I pray. Amen. John chapter 20, verse 24. Help me, Holy Ghost. Thomas, who was called the twin, one of the 12, was not with them when Jesus came. So the other disciples said, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see the mark of the nails in his hand, and I put my finger in the mark of the nails and my hand on his side, I will not believe." A week later, his disciples were again in the house, and Thomas was with them. Although the doors were shut, Jesus came. And said, "Peace be with you." He said to Thomas, "Put your finger here and see my hands. Reach out, put it in my side. Do not doubt, but believe." Thomas answered and said, "My Lord." Not just Lord. Not just any old body, but my Lord and my God. Jesus said to him, "Have you believed because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have come to believe." Yeah. Can I just get about 6 people in the audience to stand with me? Just 6 in the audience. Say, "I need thee. I need thee. Oh, I need every hour. I need thee. Oh, bless me now, my friend. I come to you. Now it's about 6 more people. Can you join in now? Said, "I need thee. Oh, I need Stay right there. In the midst of my heartache, in the midst of my depression, in the midst of my suffering, oh, bless me now. In the midst of my financial worries, in the midst of what the doctors say tomorrow, bless me now, my Savior. I come broken and battered. I come confused. I misused sometimes. I come tired sometimes. I come to thee. I'm going to get to this word in a second. Yes, Lord. Oh, say yes. Say yes. Want to preach this morning from this place, amen. Want to preach this morning from this place, and y'all just pray for your pastor, amen, amen. Because to be honest, as I was preparing this, I really had more of me and what's going on around me in my mind, amen. We just hope. I want to preach from this particular topic, from that pericope. Just look at the evidence. Look at the evidence. Y'all pray for me as I attempt to preach. Beloved, I request your accompaniment with me as we travel back some 2,000 years ago to a moment right after the crucifixion and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Beloved, our landing pad places us in the mind of one of the 12, one of Christ's disciples named Thomas. Let me give you some background so there are no surprises in this journey. In Thomas's mind, there is a case that is being tried and a case that needs to be solved. The heart of Thomas serves now as the jury in the case, and it needs to be convinced that the one whom he just saw hung, beaten, and his life stripped from him is yet alive. It would seem that all the indicators would suggest that this should not even be a question in Thomas's mind. After all, he was one of the 12. He had heard what Christ had told the 12 numerous times in order that they might prepare for this moment. I'm sure the author Luke counted him present back in Luke's gospel when he said the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, by the chief priests and the teachers of the law. He said, and the Son of Man must be killed and on the third day be raised to life. And I can see while Jesus was with them in the earthly flesh, don't you see Thomas proclaiming, if Jesus said it, I believe it, and that settles it. And can I be honest with many of us today? That's probably the proclaimed faith level of where many of us are right now. A lot of us can say, if God said it, I believe it, and that settles it. All it takes is a word from God for me to faction my faith after, And when God speaks that word, all I have to do is be patient and allow the word to manifest itself. I don't worry about it because God said it. I don't cry about it because God said it. I don't lose any sleep about it because God said it. It doesn't bring me down because God said it. And believe me, my brothers and sisters, that's a good level of faith to have, but I'll be honest, for me, doesn't always work like that in my life. I've learned in life that it's easy to believe what God said when it seems as if we can put our hands on what God says. I'm trying to preach. I really hope y'all with me. It's easy to believe what God said if there is even the slightest chance that my humanity can reach what has been ordained for me, whether it's my elevation, whether it's my breakthrough, just in case God forgets about me. It's easy to believe that what God said, I believe it, and that settles it, until the friction of life confronts you and it throws something at you that even makes what God seem suggest it must be somewhat suspect. I'm not the one in here, the only one in here who has been in some places, who has seen some stuff that you just had to step back and wonder, God, look now, God, I trust you, but this seems like a little too much. I wish I had some witnesses here this morning that said, you know, I ain't going to play in front and come in here and put on a show. There have been some moments in my life where I wanted to believe God. I was trying to believe God, but I had to tell God, I've never seen anything like this. I've never been in this place before, never faced this type of mountain, God. And God, I ain't trying to doubt you right now, but God, I just don't know, because I've never been here before. I've never been in this predicament before. And God, I'm trying to trust, I'm trying to love, but this seems a little too much. And that's the place Thomas was in. The fact that Christ said he had to die was not beyond belief, because Thomas was familiar with the phenomena of death. It was the raising that Thomas was not so keen on. You got to think back in Thomas's mind. It only happened one time, a resurrection, when Jesus went to Lazarus and told Lazarus to come up out of a grave. And even then, it seemed as if it was a stretch of the imagination. But to make now worse, the one who had raised then is the one dead now. And Thomas is saying, God, I just don't know. Anybody had any just don't know moments? And so the image of what he saw is struggling against the concept he was to believe in, a risen Savior. The image of what he saw, that Christ was dead and buried, was so stuck in his mind that it conquered what he was to believe, and it conquered what he was told. Thomas was saying, I heard you, Christ. And I'm not saying I don't trust you, but this one looks a little funny. I'm not sure about this one. And as we are sitting in court, there are some witnesses, the other disciples, who come and try to appeal to the heart of Thomas by proclaiming that, in fact, they did see him. Because if you read the text says just a week ago, about a week ago. Just trying to see how many of y'all say for real. About a week ago, the disciples, they were locked up in a room because they were scared that the Jewish leaders were coming after them after they had killed Christ. And the text says that it was in that room, that while they were sitting there scared and hiding, they were sitting there, it was in that room that Christ came to meet them. He appeared to them. They saw his hand, they saw his feet, and they pleaded with Thomas. But the heart of Thomas, to the heart of Thomas, this was a secondary account that he was alive. To the heart of Thomas, Thomas didn't want to get this information by hearsay, but Thomas wanted an eyewitness, first-hand account that indeed Christ was alive. In other words, Thomas needed evidence. In a trial, we know the importance of evidence. The evidence is what either acquits or convicts. If the glove didn't fit, find a knife 20 years later. The evidence is what sways the case. The evidence is what causes unbelief to change to belief. And Thomas says until that requirement is satisfied, until Thomas was put in the position where he could place his own hands in the holes that were left from the nails in his hands and his sides, he says, I won't believe that Christ is still alive. I hasten to say that even though Thomas has earned the nickname Doubting Thomas, it seems as if his story is told with a sense of condemnation. In the fact that he being a disciple, people ought to say he should have believed more. He should have been more steadfast in his faith. Didn't he know that the just shall live by faith? And he should have had no room to doubt. If we're not careful, the telling of this story by some seems to incriminate him with the offense of a faithless, hypocritical disciple. These are some of the judgments that Thomas endures, but I believe it's safe to assume that many people in here, in this place right now, we can relate more to doubting Thomas than we could have to a faithful Thomas. The picture of what we often see is often bigger than the picture of what we're supposed to believe. And even though we heard everybody around us telling us to be patient, they told us to wait on the Lord and be of good cheer. They told us all things work together for the good of them that love the Lord. Still, despite my warning, my yearning, my desiring to display my best faith, to exhibit a faith that is able to withstand all doubt and fear, the reality is my faith is still growing. And every now and then I experience some growing pains. Every now and again I deal with moments of doubt. Even though I'm striving, I'm still trying to figure this thing out. The fact is that this story, instead of us always incriminating Thomas, really what Thomas does is help liberate some of us. It helps set some of us free, because some of you've burdened yourself with trying to look like the perfect Christian. You burden yourself with trying to make it seem like there are no issues with your faith. You burden yourself with trying to make it seem, with trying not to give anything for other church folk to talk about it. And so you come in like you got it together. You come in like you're ready to trust. You come in like you're ready to throw your hands up and say, God, take complete control, when really on the inside you're crying because you're saying, Lord, I don't know what to do. You ain't got to tell me. Because when the smile leaves on Sunday, the tears come Monday when you're trying to figure out what to do. I know you holy. I ain't trying to take nothing away from your holiness. I ain't trying to take nothing away from your sanctification, if that's even a word. I ain't trying to take nothing away, but I understand the complex of our humanity is that sometimes I just don't know, God. I've never been here. I just don't know. And instead of questioning Thomas and calling him doubting Thomas, maybe we ought to tell Thomas, thank you, because I ain't want to tell nobody, Thomas. I ain't want Pastor Jackson to know. I ain't want them to know on the third row to the left. I ain't want them to know in the back that I was really struggling. But thank you, Thomas, because you've given me permission to let everybody know, yeah, I'm a Christian, but I ain't perfect. Yeah, I'm a Christian, but I have my moments. Yeah, I love the Lord, but yet there's still some work to be done in my life. Yeah, I go to church. Yeah, I still fall, but the Lord is not through. And let me clarify this. I'm talking about folks who are really living the life, yet still finding setbacks. Now, right now, I ain't talking about folks who disregard it altogether. That's another sermon for another day. But it's some of you in here earnestly. You're struggling. You're in the place of, God, I'm trying, but I'm just not perfect. I'm pushing, but I'm still falling. I'm trying to climb, and it seems like the more I climb, the more something pushes me back down. The further I go, the more it seems like there's a yoke that's pulling me back. I want to talk to you this morning because I have some good news for you, and the good news is in the text. Is while everybody who reads the Bible has spent their life incriminating Thomas, watch what Jesus does. He does not incriminate him. He does not talk down to him. He does not talk bad about him, but Jesus meets him where he is. I wish I had some folk right there who would get happy, because now what I've just told you is that you ain't got to live up to the pastor's standards of faith. You ain't got to live up to the steward's standards of faith. You ain't got to live up to what everybody else standard of faith is for your life. For your faith journey is between you and God. And when you get to the place of where you keep falling, God is not like the church, because the church wants you to come up, but God says, I'll come down. I wish I had about 4 or 5 people who would say, I'm so glad I serve a God who is willing to meet me where I am. I'm so glad I serve a God who is willing to take off his you godness and come down and meet me at the place of where I am. And that was the first thing in the text that I found inspiring, is that Jesus hears the plea from Thomas that says, unless I see the nails in his hands and unless I see the nail marks in his side, I won't believe. And instead of telling Thomas, well, you just gonna suffer for your unbelief, Jesus steps out of the realm of heaven and comes down and tells Thomas, here I am. Here I am, here I am, all my nails, all the nails, here I am, here I am in what you needed to see. Here I am, because this is what I learned. Jesus is not concerned about your religious movement. Jesus is concerned about your relationship. I'm coming to the church. I'm coming to the church. Jesus ain't always concerned about how high you can hit the mark. Jesus is concerned, can I go get you and bring you up to the mark? How do I know? Because it's in the text. Watch the command. It's in the text. I'm almost done. Watch the command. It's in the text. He says, Thomas, I heard you. You needed to see evidence. And some of you biblical scholars, you've already jumped to 29 and say, Jackson, you ain't preaching right. Because in 29, he said, blessed are those who have not seen me. And I know what 29 says. But the reality is I also know there are levels to this thing. What the church has forgotten is everybody ain't on the same level yet. And our job is not to criticize the level, but our job is to bring you up from the level you own. And so Jesus comes down, he says, look, here is the evidence. But I want to caution you, because when Jesus Christ gives you evidence, what happens is now he's expecting that there is a change in your perspective because of the evidence that was presented. I'm almost done. He says, Thomas, 3 things. If you look at the evidence, you will find out I am guilty. Because when we're in the court, remember we're in the courtroom, and when you're in the courtroom, the purpose of evidence is to try to either convict or acquit. And in this case, Christ says to Thomas, Thomas, if you look at the nails in my hands, you'll find that you can go ahead and convict me. You look at the nails in my feet, you can go ahead and convict me. The question is, why are you trying to convict God? This is why. Because when I can solidify your guilt, I never have to think about your guiltiness again. Y'all didn't catch that. When you go to the TV, when you go to the internet, they have this thing all over the place called you can find out if you live in the area of someone who's committed a sex crime. If they've been confirmed guilty, and you know it, don't matter how Christian loving you is, you can forgive them of what they did, but you still ain't gonna let your child. I can love you, But if my child walking down the street, I'm walking with my child because they've solidified your guilt, and now your guilt stands with you. That ain't always the Christian thing to do, but y'all walking with me. It solidified the guilt, and Christ is saying, if I can show you the evidence and you can find me guilty, then the next time your faith is questioned, you'll remember the fact that I was guilty then and I'm still guilty now. Some of y'all looking at me crazy. Jackson, what are you talking about? He's guilty about. I'm glad you asked the question. You were reading my mind. First, he's guilty of fulfilling his purpose. If you remember from the beginning of antiquity, when God came in and the fall of man happened in the Garden of Eden, God said, then this thing is messing up. And as it progressed, it did nothing but get worse. And then somewhere, God said, I got to make man in my own image that will go and be the sheep, the lamb that was slain for the remission of everybody's sin. And what I'm telling you is that Jesus had a purpose for coming to earth. And when he shows them the nails, he says, my purpose was to come and my purpose was to die. But that's not the only thing he's guilty of. Brother Lowe, he's also guilty not only of fulfilling purpose, but he's also guilty of keeping his promises. Because he said, even though I will die on the third day. I know it ain't Easter. I know y'all celebrated Easter last week. I know, but I wish somebody got happy on the Sunday after Easter that even though he said, I got to die, I won't stay there forever. For the third day, I got to get up. So, I'm getting ready to go home. My wife told me to stop saying that. Not only is he guilty of fulfilling purpose, let me add something to that. If he can fulfill his purpose, God can also fulfill your purpose if you would just trust in him. Not only is he guilty of fulfilling purpose, but he's also guilty of fulfilling promises. That's why now I can confidently say, if God said it. Now, I ain't talking about what you think you heard. I ain't talking about what the cookie said when you opened the cookie. Amen. I'm talking about if you really walking in relationship with God and God has ordained some stuff in your life and you know without a shadow of a doubt that God has ordained for something for you, then you can say, if God said it, I believe it, and that settles it. But lastly, Christ is guilty of seeing potential. Even though Christ has died, there was a movement now taking place, and Christ needed everybody with their hands on the plow, and instead of throwing Thomas off, he says, because I see your potential, I'm coming down to get you. Y'all didn't get that. Some of you ought to have died from an overdose 30 years ago. Some of you ought to have been the one in a traffic accident because of your DUI. Y'all ain't got to hide from me, amen. You ain't got to hide nothing from me. I know some of y'all sipped the bottle, amen, and you sipped it heavy, and every now and again you still have a little communion on Tuesday, Thursday, and Wednesday. Y'all ain't got to lie to me. And I'll be honest, a long time ago when you had no limit, you had no threshold, and you still got in your car, you should have been the one in an accident dead because you was drinking, but it did not happen. I wish I had somebody. You should have been the one laid out in the morgue, but what happened was because God still saw potential in you, God did not give up on you. God did not cast you out. I wish I had 5 people that would just get happy and say, but God came because he saw the best in me. Is there anybody here that says, I ain't had the best past? Anybody here said, I ain't always had it together, but I'm so thankful that God saw the best in me. I've fallen sometimes, but God saw the best in me. I gave up on God sometimes, but God saw the best in me. I quit on God, but God saw the best in me. I was strung out, but God saw the best in me. I was high, God saw the best in me. Wanted to give up, God saw the best in me. But I got good news. I I got good news for somebody. Not only did God see the best in you, not only is God guilty, but this is what I learned about God. God is a repeat offender. I don't know who I'm talking to right now, but if God did it before, I'm going to thank God that God can do it again. If God did it before, thank the Lord that God can. Has anybody been presented with the evidence? Y'all not praying with me. Has anybody been presented with the evidence? And is the evidence enough to let you know that no matter how far you go, God will never leave you nor forsake you? Anybody been presented with the evidence? Anybody ever had their heart broken and thought nobody could fix it? But when they gave it over to God, God became a restorer. Anybody saw the evidence? We're standing. There's some people in here. You're a good Christian and all, but you have not paid attention to the evidence. Because watch this. This is why y'all pray for me. Because when Thomas saw the evidence, he didn't sit there with a mean look on his face. When Thomas saw the evidence, he didn't get cute and prancy and go like this. Y'all, I'm telling you my struggle. But when you really see the evidence of the redemption of God in your life, then you begin to make God personal in your life. And watch this. Watch this. He didn't ever get to the point of touching the nails. All he had to do was see the evidence. He ain't read the text. He ain't never feel the nails. And I just want to know, is there somebody in here that says, God, I seen you do some stuff in other people. God, I seen you make some ways not only in other people's life, but I seen you make some ways in my life. And I was foolish enough to say, God, I was lucky. That wasn't lucky. I said it was a coincidence. That wasn't no coincidence. That was God showing you the evidence that I love you, that you are mine. And so as we're standing, the doors of the church are open. The call is there somebody struggling because you have not seen the evidence? Is there someone going through because you're struggling with the evidence? I'm no lawyer. I went to school to be a math teacher and a preacher. But I didn't watch enough Judge Joe Brown and Judge Judy to know a little bit about law. Can I present some evidence to you? He woke you up this morning. Can I present some evidence to you? He started you on your way. Can I present some evidence to you? He made way out of no way. Can I present some evidence to you? When the doctor said no, he said yeah. When the doctor said yeah, he said no. Can I present some evidence to you? When your back was against the wall, he became a fighting spear. Can I present some evidence to you? And as Brother Covington said, it was nobody. Nobody. It wasn't your lucky shoe. It wasn't your lucky sock. It wasn't because you did such and such. It was nobody but the Lord. So is there someone right now you're willing to receive the evidence? Someone that says, God, you've been so good, even when I'm not good. You've been so kind, even when I was mean. God, even when I had bouts with my faith, and though I said I trusted you, when it was time for me to show I trusted you, I often failed, but you came down to meet me where I was. If that's you, won't you come now? If you're looking for a church home, a lot of imperfect people. They sure enough have an imperfect pastor. But we're confident in the perfection of the God we serve. And so we're at a point where we fall, God is God enough to pick us up. Where we're going wrong, God is God enough to turn us around. If you want to be a part of that fellowship, we ask you to come. Listen, I want you to turn to your neighbor. Turn to your neighbor. Look at him in the eye. Look at him in the eye. I want you to say, juror number one, do you believe the evidence? Come on, wait for an answer. Wait for an answer. Wait for an answer. Wait, if they don't believe the evidence, keep talking to them. I want you to pray with them. If they're a little bit unsure right now, I want you to talk to them. Pray with them. Thank you, God. Will there be one? The evidence lied at the bottom of Calvary's cross. Said there was a fountain filled with blood, and it was drawn from his veins. And sinners like you and I plunged beneath the flood, lose all our guilty stains. Bless the Lord. Give God a hand clap of praise. Hallelujah. Shall we now prepare for the Lord?